Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Sheng. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. China's official position on the first day of the Israel-Hamas conflict drew international attention. On Sunday, October 8th, the Chinese Foreign Ministry urged all parties to maintain calm, immediately halt hostilities, protect civilians, and prevent the situation from worsening further. They emphasized that the fundamental resolution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict lies in implementing the two-state solution and establishing an independent Palestinian state. Israel is disappointed with China's statement, finding it insufficient in its condemnation and expressing anger over China's mention of the two-state solution during the current situation. According to a report from Reuters, Yavo Weeks, a senior official from the Israel embassy in China, stated that Israel had anticipated a stronger condemnation of Hamas from China. He emphasized that during a period of street violence and casualties, it's not the appropriate time to advocate for a two-state solution. Comparisons have been made between the Hamas attack on Israel and the Pearl Harbor incident, with the Chinese Communist Party calling on Israelis to exercise restraint and refrain from retaliation. However, it's important to remember that during World War II, when the Japanese carried out a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, if the logic of the CCP were followed, to avoid retaliation, would China have successfully concluded its resistance against Japan? Would Japan have ended its occupation of China? This highlights the Chinese Communist Party's clear stance, which aligns with Hamas. The CCP's immediate call for a halt on the first day of the conflict, along with their clear bias and apparent support for terrorists, exposes a stance that can aid the Israeli population in gaining a better understanding of the true nature of the Chinese Communist Party. Consequently, the more the CCP conveys such positions, the more it assists the international community in recognizing and comprehending the CCP. I have some local Chinese news about the war that I'd like to share with you. On October 8th, the paper, an official Chinese media outlet, featured a news story that stirred extensive conversations on China's social media platforms. The headline of the news article read, "Chinese female teacher received advice to wrap herself in the national flag for safety, opting for a Changsan in the absence of a flag." Isn't this headline rather thought-provoking? As reported by the paper, a Chinese teacher employed at an Israeli university shared during an interview that after the Saturday attack, she had plans to go shopping. A colleague suggested she enhance her safety by wrapping herself in a Chinese national flag. She mentioned that she didn't have a national flag on hand at the time, but did have a Changsan. Therefore, she opted to wear the Changsan when heading out for shopping. During an interview with the paper, this woman named Gao shared her experience in Israel. She explained that she had been out for a run when she heard a loud noise, realizing that Israel was under attack from rocket fire. Her colleagues and the two vice principals from the school where she taught immediately contacted her, advising her to seek shelter in her hotel room and not venture outside. After spending some time in her hotel room, Gao decided to go shopping for supplies, fearing that the shelling would continue in the following days, leaving her with insufficient provisions. Her colleagues had suggested she wrap herself in a Chinese national flag for safety, but lacking one, she chose to wear a Changsan, making her nationality as a Chinese person evident. She then headed to the supermarket to purchase what she needed. Her shopping trip was quite safe. I'm uncertain about your reaction upon hearing this news, and I can't verify whether this story is legitimate or a fabrication by the paper. Whether it's true or not, this news bears a striking resemblance to the depiction in the Chinese movie Wolf Warrior, with the only difference being the replacement of the national flag with a Changsan. The reasoning behind this woman's choice to go shopping during the missile attacks appears dubious. And her anticipation of increased danger in the following days doesn't match the reality in Israel. The Israeli military promptly restored control of the situation. Nevertheless, I recognize that her unwavering patriotic conduct reveals a concern that the Chinese Communist Party cannot endure scrutiny. The paper is a non-mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party, and in the eyes of the global community, the incident is widely perceived as a provocative act by Hamas terrorists. In the report by the paper, the woman in question believed that draping herself in the Chinese national flag and donning a Chinese cheongsam would guarantee her safety. The implicit message is that when Hamas terrorists see the Chinese national flag and the cheongsam, they identify the person as a friendly and spare them from harassment or kidnapping. This implies that the terrorists' projectiles would mysteriously avoid these dresses in this manner. Upon closer scrutiny, this news raises the questionable possibility that the Chinese Communist Party may have some form of affiliation with the terrorists. The idea that wearing a national flag or a cheongsam would provide safety during rocket attacks appears far-fetched, raises doubts about the CCP's messaging. The CCP's repeated attempts to create this kind of perception, suggesting that a national flag can provide safety during international conflicts, are dangerous. Relying on China's national flag for personal safety during a terror attack or in times of war is misleading. The Hamas terrorists might not be able to identify individuals as Chinese. The missiles and the rockets won't discriminate based on nationality. This is basic common knowledge. If some Chinese internet users, including patriotic pink individuals or those with lower levels of education, actually believe the CCP's propaganda, they might end up dangerously close to terrorists in future international terror events. This irresponsible propaganda could potentially lead to the harm and the loss of more Chinese lives. During a press conference at the Chinese Foreign Ministry on Monday, a foreign journalist raised a question regarding a statement from the Israeli embassy in China. The embassy had expressed a hope for stronger condemnation of Hamas from China, rather than its current endorsement of the two-state solution. In response, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning stated, "On the Israel-Palestine conflict, China consistently supports the side of justice." This statement is reminiscent of the ambiguity often observed in China's position concerning the Ukraine war, where it remains uncertain whether China supports Ukraine or Russia, but underscores China's stance on justice. Mao Ning also added, "We are friends to both Israel and Palestine. We genuinely wish for peaceful coexistence between them, and we believe that the path to realize this aspiration lies in the two-state solution." The Chinese Foreign Ministry's reluctance to condemn Hamas's terrorist activities signifies its stance. On the same day, an article in the Chinese state-run newspaper, the Beijing News, carried the headline, "When armed individuals opened fire, they let it pass when they realized they were Chinese." Notably, this report refrains from labeling Hamas as terrorists and instead refers to them as armed individuals. The Beijing News provided an account of the incident as follows. On October 7th, the Palestinian armed group Hamas launched a military assault on Israel, resulting in substantial casualties. Mr. Xu, who was employed in Israel, recounted the incident to the Beijing News. He explained that he and 3 colleagues were attacked by armed individuals while traveling on a road within the jurisdiction of Yavin, Israel. More than 10 bullets struck their vehicle, and one of Mr. Xu's Chinese co-workers sustained gunshot wounds. The event unfolded at 7:15 a.m. on October 7th, when Mr. Xu set out from Netvold. He was accompanied by 3 other co-workers. Suddenly, a group of armed individuals donning camouflage attire and brandishing AK-47 assault rifles appeared on the road. Mr. Xu remarked, "Initially, we didn't know their identity, but we later observed them firing at passing vehicles. Sensing the imminent danger, we accelerated to a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, and our vehicle's doors were repeatedly hit by bullets. As we realized we couldn't evade the situation, we had no choice but to bring the car to a halt. At that moment, the windshield in front of the driver's seat bore the impact of multiple bullets, with 2 bullets directly penetrating the glass and infiltrating the driver's compartment. A fellow Chinese worker in the rear seat sustained gunshot wounds to the abdomen and the legs. Following our enforced stop on the road, I had to summon the courage to exit the vehicle, as I feared that the attackers would persist in shooting if I remained inside. Mr. Xu shared his account, explaining that upon exiting the vehicle, the armed individuals ceased firing once they realized they were Chinese. Following this, he and his companions worked together to carry the injured worker out of the car and sought refuge in nearby bushes. Mr. Xu recalled that during this time, several cars along the same road were compelled to stop by the roadside. Some of these vehicles had passengers who had been hit by bullets and were found huddled over their steering wheels, their conditions uncertain. In another instance, a driver lost control of their vehicle after being struck by a bullet, resulting in the car and its occupants veering off the road. Subsequently, Israeli police cars and approximately 100 soldiers arrived at the scene, engaging in a 1-hour battle with the armed individuals. Mr. Xu recounted that he could hear pleas for help from people in the vicinity. In response, he began shouting, "China, China!" His cries drew the attention of the Israeli military, to whom he promptly identified himself and provided a detailed account of the unfolding events. With the aid of the Israeli military, the injured workers were transported to the hospital. As for Mr. Xu and the 2 other co-workers, they were escorted to a nearby bomb shelter situated about 1 kilometer away. The injured worker are presently receiving medical treatment at the hospital and are no longer in a critical condition. It appears that in the Chinese Communist Party's media reports, there is a portrayal of Hamas terrorists having a strong affinity for China. The narrative suggests that when these terrorists encounter Chinese individuals, they feel at ease. When they took refuge in the bushes and were faced with Israeli soldiers, they called out, "China, China!" And this led to the Israeli military coming to their aid. Consequently, when you read this article, it conveys a sense that it's not Chinese individuals facing a terrorist attack, but rather that these terrorists have a deep appreciation for China, and even the Israelis exhibit a fondness for China. All it takes is identifying as Chinese or othering China to find safety. The narrative implies that these terrorists are quite emotional and friendly. This perspective aligns with the one presented in the paper the previous day, maintaining a consistent political bias. The underlying logic appears to be that Chinese Communist Party maintains friendships with both Hamas and Israel, and that's the underlying implication. I wonder how Xi Jinping would perceive such a situation if he was shot in the calf by Hamas armed individuals. There is another significant news item related to the ongoing conflict involving an Israeli woman of mixed Chinese heritage who was kidnapped by Hamas militants and taken to Gaza. The Israeli consulate in China is using this incident to shape Chinese public opinion. They have taken to Chinese social media to emphasize the fact that a woman with Chinese roots has been abducted by Hamas, essentially raising the question, do you still support Hamas? The Israeli diplomats are clearly aiming to convey to the Chinese people the distinction between friends and foes in the conflict. While these efforts may have some effect within Chinese society, it's important to note that on Chinese social media platforms there is a considerable presence of pro-Hamas sentiments. Some fervent patriotic individuals, unable to differentiate between Pakistan and Palestine, vehemently endorse Palestine and voice their opposition to any nation supported by the United States. Since the US backs Israel, they feel compelled to oppose Israel. These little pink nationalists embody the position of many Chinese citizens, and candidly, this perspective aligns with the official stance of the Chinese government. Hence, Israeli diplomats' attempts to sway the Chinese Communist Party and its supporters through appeals based on kinship and empathy are unlikely to yield results. While Israeli engagement with the CCP may still carry some idealistic hopes, it serves as a strategy for Israel's survival within this intricate context. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.